Welcome to the MVP Show. Today we're off to Virginia to chat with Michael Ochs. He recently went independent under the name of Excellence. He is an incredible guy, a master inventor. I have a feeling we're going to see some amazing things in the future coming from his creativity. For show notes, you can visit nz365guide.com/53. Please note that the MVP Show is on the move. As of December the 31st, 2018, all future shows will only be published on the Microsoft Business Application podcast. It will no longer be published on crm.audio. Now let's get on with the show. Hi, welcome to the MVP Show. I'm here with Mike Ochs. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mark. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Okay, this is our second attempt at getting this recording done. I think last time you had a cat issue. Is that right?
Yeah, we had a cat we think might have fallen down the stairs and injured its paw, so had to go to the vet. $700 later, they said, "Yep, definitely injured the paw." So here's some cat medication, and keep her off her feet. So
wow. So is she healing up all right now?
Yeah, she seems to be doing better. It's just a sprain from what they told us.
Okay. So not too bad. She wasn't like beaten up by another cat or something like that.
Nah, she's an indoor cat. She doesn't get out much.
So Mike, where are you from? What part of the world do you live in, and kind of what's your region famous for?
So I am in Alexandria, Virginia, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C. And, I guess, obviously the being this close to D.C., there's a lot of government people here. It's a bit transient. So people, people come in from the military and things like that, and they tend to stay for a couple of years and then move out. I've been here for about 13 years now. I went to school up in Pennsylvania. Most of my family's from the Pennsylvania area, but I moved down here shortly after I graduated college and started working for a company that did Dynamics 365, and that was version 3, I guess, when I started on with them, and I worked for them for up until October this year. So. But yeah, we're the big thing down here is crabs. So like blue crab, and that's that's pretty much my favorite food. And so I'll probably not move away from this area, even if I move a little bit further.
There's something about crab meat, right? Crab is just, even compared to lobster, if I had the choice of, eating crab or lobster, I would take crab any day of the week. It's just such a sweeter meat, I feel.
It is. It's and the blue crab is so much more tender.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's a little bit, more difficult to pick than your, king crab or something like that, but it's kind of a social event. Like you get a bushel of crabs and you sit down and you sit down with people for a couple hours, drink beer, and pick crabs. It's awesome. Okay,
so is it like a whole crab, and you've got like crab kind of cut, pliers type thing that you got to crunch them up with, and then like little picks that you kind of pick it all out. Yeah.
Yep. It's an art form, actually. Being able to pick a crab, it takes years of experience to do, but it's a lot of fun.
Wow, man! I'm looking forward to coming there and eating blue crab at some point. How big are they?
It depends. They're going to get to. They have to be at least 5 inches from tip to tip of their shell in order for you to keep them. So if you're fishing for them, they have to be at least 5 inches. They can get up to probably 7 inches. The real big male crabs can get up to about 7 inches. That's probably the biggest they get.
Nice. Now, by the way, are you comfortable? This is a fireside chat and all. I hope you're all set up for that.
Oh yeah. I got my YouTube fire. I got 10 hours of fireplace on YouTube set up here, so it's very, very cozy in my office right now.
Yeah, I'm hoping you're keeping warm. I mean, I'm in London, and it's definitely got into the cold season here, so. A fireplace is definitely in order, but I think it's illegal in London now to have a fire apart from, a YouTube fire. So
is it really?
Yeah, because, they had there was a period of time in its history where because there were so many fires burning to heat these places that I think 12,000 people died when this kind of smog came in. Well, half driven by the weather and half driven by the fires running in London. This is back in Winston Churchill's time, yeah. So it was quite tragic.
And they still have gas fireplaces, or no?
I don't know. I don't know. It's all gas heat, like it's all gas internal heating and stuff. So yeah, gas must be fine. It's just I think it was originally all coal type stuff and non massively pollutants coming out of the coal. I mean, I'm in a what Americans would probably call a condo, and except for it was built over 100 years ago, and I in this place boarded up are three fireplaces in a one bedroom condo.
Oh man.
So that gives you an idea, as on the top of my building, which is only 3 stories tall, there's about 10 chimney stacks. So it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy, crazy, crazy. So tell us a bit about your family. How's that going? Who are they? And what's your family life like?
Well, I live with my wife and my 2 daughters. They are, and let me get this right because I often get it wrong. So they're 6 and 8 are their ages. I live with my wife Melanie. We've been married for 12 years now, and yeah, my daughters are in third grade and kindergarten right now. So it's exciting. They're such cool kids. I mean, they're so easy and just pretty much the focus of my life. So
Yeah, I bet. I bet kids totally do change your perspective, right? As
yeah,
in, it's like
absolutely.
life with kids and life before kids are two different things.
It's hard to remember. It's hard to remember what it was like before they were here. So
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so how come or how did you become an MVP? And what's your superhuman skill? Kind of what's your magic or what's your talent?
so I became an MVP. It was actually back in February of this year. So it's
Wow,
coming up on
that's
a
that
year.
recent.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I did quite a bit with. I built some tools and some open source projects. One was Snapshot, and this was when I was at with the partner that I worked for. That's a tool that it's a solution inside of Dynamics. It will allow you to do quite a few things, including copying records, backing up records inside of Dynamics, and being able to restore those records. It has some functionality to restore records from the audit history, things like that. So that was one of the tools I built. The other tool was Intelligent Query, and also called IQ, and that was to address the issue of being able to do outer joins in Advanced Find, something that Microsoft recently sort of half added to the product, but they still haven't fully fleshed it out. So you can add outer joins, you can do the in Advanced Find to the related entities, but you still can't add filters to those related entities. So IQ actually lets you add filters, and do those sort of what they call the not in type of queries. So get me all cases or all contacts with no cases or something like that, or all contacts with no high priority cases. So you can do that with IQ. It's a solution as well. You install it into Dynamics 365, and then there's a certain trigger in Advanced Find that'll allow you to basically turn it on. And then I've also done quite a bit, and I speak at a lot of conferences about bots. So that was something that I got introduced to when they first came out in, I guess it was back in 2015 maybe. Satya announced them at Microsoft Build conference, and I actually ended up going to Extreme 365, which was then Extreme CRM in Warsaw, Poland, like 2 weeks after Microsoft Build, and they had the innovation challenge there, and I ended up building a bot for Dynamics 365. So I was one of the early adopters, and I've since then, there's an open source repo on GitHub for a Dynamics bot. I've iterated on that quite a bit and kind of talk about it, quite a bit at in sessions and things like that. So it's one of those technologies that's still emerging, and I don't know if people necessarily know what the best use cases are for bots. The way I like to explain it though is that bots are kind of like bots are to portals, I guess, what a Power App is to Dynamics 365. So they're really good for very specific use cases. So if you have a very specific business case, you want to get somebody through really quickly, and you want to be able to push that out to all of your customers in the way you would a portal or something like that, then bots are something to consider as a way to, and they are native to mobile apps or mobile, so they'll run inside of Facebook Messenger or Skype or whatever, and you don't have to worry about building those native native mobile apps. You can use a bot, which is hosted up in Azure or wherever. So that's my spiel on bots.
Wow, man, you've just given me so much to unpack there.
Okay.
So because bots was the last one, let's address that first of all. Kind of in what you created, either at the Innovation Challenge or what you're saying is available to use there. Kind of what was the use case that you actually built out in it?
Yeah. So the use case was it was basically a sales. Field sales type bot. So it gave the user the ability to quickly look up information in Dynamics 365. So you can actually say find contact Mark Smith, and it'll pull up that record for you in a little what they call a card. It'll show your important information, and then you can also do updates on the fly. You can say things like follow up with Mark Smith next week, and it'll create a task inside of Dynamics. So that was the idea. It does quite a bit. So it doesn't necessarily conform to what I was saying about a very specific kind of use case.
Yeah. Okay, so are you typing these instructions in, or are you talking?
You can do either. So the talking part of it is native to the device you're using. So inside of Facebook Messenger there is a microphone button, so you can talk to it and it'll translate that. But otherwise, if you're interacting with it, you would be typing.
When I think of bots, right, I don't want to type. The whole idea for me of a bot is we need a better interface, and at the moment the keyboard is something that was invented so long ago based on a typewriter that whose keys used to, if you like, hit each other, so they spread it out in the format they have to make people less efficient as an input device, right? And that's what we currently use. And I just think that the whole voice command, we've not seen, if you like, that come to the fore. If I'm in Dynamics, just thinking off the top of my head, does your bot allow you to interact with any entity type? So for example, activity entity type. So give you an example. So if I said, pull up Tom, could I just command it like that? Pull up Tom and, or not even pull up Tom. Can you just add a follow-up meeting for the 26th of December and at 3 p.m. And I think therefore it should have got enough. Oh, and the subject's going to be, let's discuss your Christmas gifts, if you like. Because, I think the subject's a compulsory field from memory that you'd have to have on a meeting. So from that commandlet, is that enough for that bot to go away, set that up? It knows that I'm, who I am. It's identified my voice, so it knows that I'm going to be the owner of that record.
Yep, that's exactly what it was. The initial use case that we built out was exactly that. So it was a follow-up with Mark Smith next Thursday. And the great thing, so the bot is actually leveraging Lewis, so the language understanding service. So you can say things like next week, and it'll actually translate that into a date for you. Setting the subject may be a second command. So once you've created the task, you can say set subject to XYZ, because then it essentially keeps track of what you just created. But yeah, it's
okay. So is it not? It's not actually creating the meeting request straight away. It's going to kind of need the validating type questions. It's holding that obviously at some point in memory, and then once it's got everything it needs, it then executes and creates it. Or what's the story?
Right now, what it will do. So if you say follow up with Mark Smith next week, it will create a task. It will actually create that task, and the subject of that task will be follow up. For the time being. So, and then it'll keep track of that record that you just created. So if you say set subject to ask Mark about the fireside chat, it'll update the record to have that new subject, and then you can set other fields as well.
Okay. Any parameters around you know how you have a slug kind of in a record that you can input variables about that individual, so you could make the, if you like, the, can you template the subject line if you like, so it automatically would drop in who the customer was, so like I just don't have a meeting request as the subject line but some intelligence. Can you do that type of thing?
Well, not currently. You know, it's it's a little bit rigid in what you can do currently, but I think that would be a nice feature to add.
When I was at a conference around that similar time, and Satya did an announcement, as in like was talking, he had his presenters come up on stage, etc., doing talking about the bot framework and its ability to learn over time. So, if I said, for example, his example was pizza delivery. If I said I want it delivered to my crib, which is a crib is in some countries is used as kind of like my holiday home or something like that. If it hadn't come across that word crib before and then it validated it was address, it would update itself and go, okay, if someone's talking about a crib, they're asking for they're referring to an address information. They want that's going to be one of their new delivery locations. Does it? Are you using any intelligence around that so it's actually self-learning?
Yep. So that's Lewis, the language understanding intelligence services, and that's probably what they were referring to in that. And that's a cool piece of software. So it, as you said, it learns over time. You basically have to train it, and it's a way to create specific or application specific type of natural language parsing. So it's not universal. It's not, it's not like your Echo or Siri or something like that, where it's kind of universal. It's very application specific. So you can do things like that where you can train it up. And the idea behind it is you kind of train it. You give it a few sentences to parse, and then it has what are called entities, and it has intents. So an intent is sort of your verb. What do you want to do? And then the entities that go along with those intents are the parameters. So I like to think of it as functions and parameters. So intent is a function, parameters are entities. And then it'll parse it out that way. It figures out what the intent is, and then it also parses out the specific entities, and it gives you a score as to how confident it is. There's an interface on the front end that you can go in. If it gets something wrong, you can update it and say, no, this is what it was actually the intent, or this was this entity. And you do that for a while, and it gets spooky smart after a while. Like I was, it seems like initially when you're programming it up, it's not very smart, but after a while, it gets really good at what it does.
So anybody using it in production?
No.
Man, see, it's just like one of those things, right? If I'd asked, is anyone taking internet payments in 1986, everyone would be like, no, right? Because it was new then. But, is it just because it hasn't kind of reached that case of people understanding the value of it, and how, the potential behind it?
I'm sure. I mean, I when I say no, there are people using it out there. I haven't implemented it for a customer yet. I would really like to find a good use case.
Oh man,
for
I just
one.
think so my couple of follow-up questions, and I'm just putting a sales hat on here, is if I'm a salesperson, I'd be straight away, does it automatically work with task flows? Can I trigger a task flow? So I come out of a meeting and I go, hey Siri, meeting follow-up, and it automatically knows what meeting I was in, blah blah blah, as in, do you have any kind of connections into device specific assistance so it can actually feed that in?
No, not currently. No. It's very much a sort of it's another interface for querying, creating, updating records. Currently, that's the bot that I built. That's pretty much it's kind of generic in that sense, I guess. You can interact with custom entities and out of the box entities, but it's mostly create, update, delete, or create, retrieve, update type of things.
You let me know when you want to test version 2.
Okay.
As in, I want to see it plugged into Google Home, my Alexa, my Siri, that type of thing. I don't think there's any point in plugging it into Cortana because that product just doesn't seem to be going anywhere. I mean, Windows 10, I have it on my computer, but the fact is, I don't know, it doesn't seem to maintain its active state. And I'm just thinking, if I'm driving back from a meeting or something like that, I just want to start running, voice commands. I just don't even think we've touched the surface of voice yet as a command input or an interface to our day to day lives as much as what we need.
No, I would tend to agree with that.
Yeah, man, this is exciting stuff. That I'd love to see, that progress. So as I said, you had a lot for me to unpack there. We're already around 20 minutes in, but listen, back on Snapshot. So Snapshot, my understanding is your original copy of that kind of was 100% based on the audit data, so you'd need your auditing on, right? And so one of the challenges that people have if they are not smart and turn off delete privileges for everybody, which is, something I've recommended for years, and someone goes and deletes something that they shouldn't have, that it creates, if auditing was on, it would recover that record based on audit logs. Is that pretty much what's happening in the original version?
Well, that was actually, believe it or not, that was added later. The original version was pretty rudimentary. The idea was that it would create a point in time backup of a record, and that was sort of the original kind of concept behind it.
So it's literally a snapshot of here it was on the 30th, and it would take a snapshot at that point.
Exactly, and it's all workflow driven, so you do have to set up the workflows to make sure that it creates those backups. But then those backups are an activity associated with the record, so you can actually see them in the activity feed, and then you can restore from them. And originally, it was you just restore like the record itself. You couldn't restore relationships or related data or anything like that. And then, on the subsequent version, we added the ability to do relationships. So now you could create a backup of the current record as well as records associated with that record, and then you could restore all of that entire hierarchy. What we realized is, well, hey, if we can restore these backups to the original record, why can't we just restore it to a new record? And then essentially what you would have is a copy. And I think that's the real power of Snapshot, is the ability to copy records. And you can copy the record, its related records. You can exclude fields and things like that. I did a video. It's not a very good video, but last week I did a video on copying web forms for the portal, and just as a kind of real quick way to recreate those if they're you have similar processes. So that's sort of a use case right there.
And how much storage does the copy take up? Like, is that something that can be monitored? How much you've got, like, from like the organization dashboard? How much is sitting in the copy state?
Yeah, it's got so it actually has an estimate of the size of the record on the record itself, so that can be aggregated to decide how much there is in there, and then you could have some bulk delete jobs if you wanted to get rid of some history there.
Very cool. And then the other one, Intelligence IQ. So this, left out of joins and dealing with the limitation that we've had for years in advanced find. Microsoft hasn't put a UI in, I didn't think, yet around that, or have they?
Yep, they have. They added it. So now when you link to another entity, there is an option to do an outer on that, but then you can't add any filters to that. So
awesome. Have you got any more bits of smarts in the works?
I'm working on an XRM toolbox tool right now. So a sort of global search functionality to basically brute force search for a value in any entity anywhere inside of Dynamics, all in one go, or you can select specific entities to search against. So I'm working on that. Kind of want to work on a flow bot. So that was an idea that David Yak had kind of thrown at me the last time I talked to him. So having flow be the sort of engine that drives the bot. There is somebody there's a what's the name of that? I forget what the name of it is now, but there's another company out there that's doing that sort of thing. But I was hoping to build one myself and see how that would work.
So give us an example how, or a use case, particularly how you see it could potentially work.
So right now, everything in the bot that I built is pretty much hard coded. So the specific intents come into the bot, and then there's code in the bot to execute those intents. Being able to kind of separate out that code and that functionality into and put that into Flow and let Flow handle it so that it can be configurable by anybody is sort of the idea there. So any of that, and there are connectors there. There are connectors for the bot, and there are connectors for Lewis already in Flow, so it shouldn't be too much of a lift to be able to implement that.
Mate, awesome, man. It sounds exciting. So listen, I caught up with you recently in Phoenix, and you've done the big move. You've gone out on your own after 13 odd years of working for another company. Tell us about what's the name of your new company? What's the plans? What are you thinking?
So the name of the company is Excellence Solutions, EXALENTS. And currently I've been subcontracting. So I've got on a contract that started on November 1. My last day of at Cobalt after 13 years was...
So no break.
No break. Zero break. And that was, after 13 years, you think you're going to take a couple of weeks off, but nope, jumped right in. But I'm on a short contract right now, and then I have another one starting up in January. So, but it's been awesome, in all honesty. I'm loving what I'm doing right now. And being able to spend time with my kids in the morning and get them to school, and kind of ease my way into the day, and working from home. So it's been really nice. And the stuff I'm doing, I've been a developer for 13 years, and the stuff I'm doing now, I haven't written a single line of code since I started, and I'm learning so much about what the platform's capable of that I never got a chance to really dig into, and I'm loving it.
You got any examples?
Just configuring portals, making the portals look nice, using Flow to do approvals and things like that. I had dabbled in that, and I knew basically the capabilities there, but I hadn't really dug into it and put it into practice. So it's been really cool. I'm excited about how much I'm learning about the sort of configuration side of things. I've been a hardcore heads down developer for a long time, so this is fun.
Mate, listen, this fireside chat's got out of control. We're already at time. and I've asked like two of the questions I had on my list. So, that's out of 25. Sorry. All good. Anyhow, just one quick fire question. I'm only asking this because it's recently come up on LinkedIn that somebody commented. Nobody really has answered my $100 question. So what's your best purchase under $100?
Oh, my best purchase under $100.
Yep, can't be a meal, can't be a book, can't be a something generic.
I don't know. I got a sweet pair of Bluetooth headphones for running that I'm really impressed with.
What brand?
They're MPOW, MPOW or something like that. They came recommended on Amazon, and I really like them. They stay in your ear while you're running, and using the Bluetooth is pretty sweet because the wires are always a pain.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome, man. Thanks for coming on the show. If people want to follow you online, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Mike Factorial, and you can find me on LinkedIn, Michael S. Ochs.
Hey, thanks for listening. Please note that the MVP show is on the move. As of December the 31st, 2018, all future shows will only be published on the Microsoft Business Application podcast. It'll no longer be published on CRM Audio. Full show notes can be found at nz365guide.com/53. Hey, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.